I have a confession to make. There was a point in time where I didn't read books. I know, shocking.
The police!
The guy who read over 100 books didn't read books for a while? That's crazy. So between the ages of like 14 to maybe 17, 16, I just didn't read any books. I used to read the Cherub books because that was hip in school. But other than that, I didn't read. I read the texts I had to for school. And then I was like, I'm going to do English literature at A-level. I was like, oh, I should really start reading books again. So here are some books that I read at that age and slightly older that really got me into being an avid reader. Because obviously I would read the odd book here and there. But these are some books that really got me like hooked on reading like I am now. So you can get these books from the description down below. Well, some of the books might not be there, but there'll be at least some because there's a series, hint, hint, wink, wink. Or you can pick them up from your local library. Let's talk about them. I think the first one and the one that really got me hooked on keeping reading is the Temeraire series by Naomi Novik. So yes, it's not just one book. This series of books, I'm pretty sure I got the first book for free when I bought one of the Aragon books, which I don't know, I bought like the third one, which I didn't read until last year. And I'll be honest, this Temeraire series, I was just in there. By the time I read it, there were maybe like at least 5 or 6 books out, probably more. So I was just there, just reading through all of them. Like, I was insatiable reading them. It did eventually get to a point where I was caught up with the series, and I think there were maybe 2 left when it came to those. And at that point, obviously writing a book takes a long time, so I kind of fell out of love with them just because of the long waits I had, because I was so used to just binging the books. But historical fantasy, if you like dragons, if you like Napoleonic history, highly recommend it. Temeraire as a character is so sweet. The protagonist, Temeraire's matey boy, grows a lot, so does Temeraire as well. Highly recommend picking up these books if you haven't read them and you like fantasy and you like dragons and you like history. Next up is Max Porter's Grief is a Thing with Feathers. Oh my lord, this book. I can tell you exactly where I was when I read this book. It's not very long, so you could probably read it in one sitting. I think I read it in maybe 1 or 2 sittings, possibly maybe just one. I was sat in the staff room of the Waterstones I was working at on my lunch break. It was Christmas time, so we were working long hours. And I was sitting there reading this book in the staff room on my own. A couple of my colleagues had already read it. And I remember one of my colleagues walks into the staff room and he just sees me there. I think I just finished the book and I'm either in tears.
I'm not crying, you're crying!
Or like, my face is just like, what? And he was just like, you finished the book, didn't you? And all I did was nod at him. This book is just... And I'm pretty sure it was Max Porter's first book as well, which is crazy. Oh man, it's the kind of book that you read and you're like, wow, just wow. I gifted this book to so many people and the response I got was, why would you do this? I'm in tears. What are you doing? Genuinely, like, I think it was the first book that got me into wanting these really emotional, like heart-wrenching stories, and then from there I went on and read a bunch of books like that, obviously, but oh boy, it was... I get shivers. The next book, we're going back in time when I was still in school. It was Philip Pullman's The Good Man Jesus and the Scoundrel Christ. I don't really remember this book too much because I read it at maybe like 15, 16 years old, but I do remember I read this book because I was like, oh, this is so scandalous. A story about Jesus and Jesus having a twin brother? What? So I think the appeal of it was that scandalous nature. Well, what I perceived as like a scandalous story as a young man. Again, I can't really tell you too much about what happens in the book because it's been over 10 years since I read this, and I read it very young at school, so I can't fully remember. Obviously, you know, if you've read the Bible or something, you kind of get the gist of it. But yeah, I don't know if I can recommend this one because I don't remember how good or not good it was. But Yeah, it was just the concept of it and my like teenage brain. I was like, ooh, I'm reading this book. Oh my god. But yeah, if you've read this book, comment down below your thoughts and opinions on it, because I can't really remember it myself. So let us know if it's any good or not. Next up is a book I'm ashamed to say. It was Haruki Murakami's Norwegian Wood. I was an edgy 18-year-old boy and I read this and I was like, wow, books could be like this? Because I don't think I'd ever read a book that was kind of surreal how Murakami attempts to be. So I don't think you should go and read this book. I am the #1 Murakami hater. I even, designed some merch that is showing that how much I hate Haruki Murakami. But yeah, I can't lie to you. This was a book that I read, and I think it was the first Japanese book I'd read. Probably, I'm not 100% sure on that. And it's also a book where I kind of first experienced that sort of surrealist type writing, or this like magical reality type writing that I now know a lot of Japanese authors are famous for or are very good at doing. Obviously, when it's your first time reading it, you're like, oh, this is great. And then you read other authors and you go, oh, Murakami's just not very good at this compared to the other ones. So, like I said, don't go and read Norwegian Wood. But I can't lie. I was an 18-year-old boy in my little edgy phase. And finally, we're bringing out the big guns. It's Stranger Than Tokyo. I dropped a book behind me. Stranger Than Tokyo by my #1 woman in the world, Haruki Murakami. This book, I think, is thankfully the one that helped me break the Murakami cycle. Again, I was maybe a year older than I was when I read the Murakami book. I think I went off and read 1 or 2 of his other books. Thankfully, I read this, and then I was like, oh, wait, this is so much better than Murakami. And the women, they're treated like human beings, and even the men are treated like human beings. And so, thankfully, Haruki Murakami, I found her, and she got me out of that Murakami rut, got me out of that path that I may have gone down reading Murakami books. So I will always be thankful to Haruki Murakami. I love her. She is my favorite. You should go and read all of her books. And just, they are better written than Murakami books. They take this like fantastical reality stuff and takes it even further. It delves more into the human psyche, in my opinion. Women are treated well in the book, or at least if they aren't, there is like it's relevant to the plot. Whereas with Murakami, it's often like, incel can get women and treats them badly. Cool, huh? Whereas Kawakami, it's actually like relevant to the plot, and oftentimes the female characters who are mistreated get their comeuppance on the people who mistreated them. So, Haruki Kawakami, you are my queen, you are my favorite. Please go and read Haruki Kawakami. And those are all the books that I read, or at least books plus a series that I read that really, I think, formed me becoming a very avid reader. Obviously, there were years where I had lulls. I remember during COVID, I didn't really read many books, but that's because I was like, oh, I'm in my house all day. I can watch all the movies and all the anime I want. So my reading took a lull there, and then it picked back up afterwards. And then obviously last year was that big year where I read so many books. But let me know in the comments down below what books really got you into reading, especially if you were like me, where you had a period where you didn't read, and then there was like a book or a series of books or a few books that got you back into being an avid reader and helped mold the kind of reader you are now. I'd like to say thank you to my members. My members get special perks like extra emojis, extra badges, they get extra videos. We have a book club for members only. The video about next month's selection for the book club is going up this week. So if you want to get involved, you can become a member. It's £2 a month. You can click below this video or on my channel. If not, I want to say thank you to you for getting to this point in the video. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, share the video with a friend or family member, and I hope you read a great book today.